Hello and welcome to our Learn and Earn program, Carnival's Travel Advisor Training Program. As an advisor selling Carnival to your clients, your role is a critical one to the Carnival brand. Thank you in advance for your commitment to learning about the fun, value, and memorable experiences that Carnival Cruise Lines brings to millions of guests worldwide. In today's module, we'll be talking about Carnival's Fly to Fun program, and our topics will include what is Fly to Fun. We'll talk about the two different Fly to Fun options. We'll do a very high-level overview of the highlights of the program. Then we're going to do a walkthrough on how to actually book Fly to Fun for your clients. And finally, we'll round it out with some frequently asked questions. So let's get started. What is Fly to Fun? So Fly to Fun is Carnival's flight program for guests who want to make flight arrangements to and from their cruise vacation, and they want to have it as one-stop shopping to pay for everything altogether, including their cruise, flights, and transfers. Now, our Fly to Fun program does offer competitive air, and it gives your clients the ability to customize that air. As part of our Fly to Fun program, we do have two different options. The first one is going to be flexible air. Flexible air is going to be the easiest option. So it is a convenient flight booking through Carnival so your guests can pay for both their flight and their cruise together. It does include our Fly to Fun travel protection, which means that if the flight is delayed or interrupted, Carnival will make sure that guests are taken care of. It also can be booked roughly 321 days and has to be booked at least 4 days before the cruise begins. Now, I mentioned just a moment ago that Fly to Fun gives your clients flexibility to search different schedules. They can go ahead and lock in their flights, and air payment is not required until the final cruise payment. Now, because of that, that means that any changes that they have to make, if they change ships or sail dates, or if they needed to change staterooms or change flights, they could do that all the way up until final payment. They can even cancel. So if they wanted to lock in their flights and then ended up canceling the flight, they could do that without any penalty or without any service fees. Now, once you're within final payment and within 60 days prior to the sailing, there is a $200 per person service for any changes or cancellations. That's in addition to any additional costs that the air carrier may pass along to us. And again, because you're booking air, we do not allow name changes under our air program. So flexible air allows them to book their air, but they don't have to pay for it until final payment. The other kind of air is going to be our restricted air. Now, restricted air is going to be a slightly better price, and just like it sounds, it's going to be a little more restricted. Just like the flexible air, it does allow them to have a flight booking through Carnival where they're paying for both their air and their cruise together. It does include our Fly to Fun travel protection, where we will make sure that if there's a delay or interruption, that we're able to get them to the ship. Just like flexible air, it opens 321 days prior to the sailing and must be booked at least 4 days before the cruise begins. Now, the difference with this one is as soon as they lock in their air schedule and they get a flight confirmation, full payment for the flight is required within 2 hours. So they do have to pay for this one up front. And because they are paying for this one up front and the charges are non-refundable, that means that any type of changes that they made would be subject to various penalties and fees based on what the carrier's availability is, what type of fare restrictions they may have, and what type of change fees they may have. So obviously no name changes allowed. So two different types of air. Flexible air, they can go ahead and lock in their air schedule but don't have it until final payment. Restricted air is going to be a better price, but full payment for the air is required up front. Now, with both of these programs, let's talk about our Fly to Fun highlights. So Fly to Fun is now available to be booked through GoCCL, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment here. Formerly, it was only available to be booked through our contact center. You can still call our contact center and they can book the air for you, or you can use GoCCL and have that flexibility right there at your fingertips. Now, with our air program, I mentioned at the very beginning, it allows your clients to have a lot of flexibility in their air options. So they can choose from specific carriers, they can look at specific flights, they can also look at different classes of service. So if they wanted to be an economy or if they wanted to be in first class or business class, they have those options as well. They can also customize the schedule and choose to go a couple days beforehand if they wanted to do a pre-package, or say a couple days after if they wanted to do a post-package, but it does allow them that flexibility. Also touched on this just briefly, but Carnival does provide flight protection in the event that there is any type of flight disruption. So if there is an interruption or a delay in the flight, Carnival will do everything within our power to get your clients to embarkation in time to board the ship, or if we miss embarkation, we will get them to the first port of call as long as it's not violating the Jones Act. So how to book Flight of Fun, because I think this is the big question on everyone's mind. So I mentioned you can now do it through GoCCL. When you go to GoCCL, if you go to the booking tab off the toolbar and click on Manage Booking. So Manage Booking, you'll put your booking number in here. If you don't know that, put in the last name of the guest along with their ship, and it will pull up their booking confirmation screen. So once you are here, I'm going to go to the middle of the screen and select My Cruise Manager. So when you select My Cruise Manager, it's going to redirect you to carnival.com and put you in the client's online cruise manager. Now, when you're in the screen, and by the way, you can come here with other type of add-ons and additions as well, but you know you're in here as the travel advisor because it says right here in the upper right-hand corner, travel agent. Once you are in the screen right here, you'll look at the categories tab, and there is a drop-down menu. So if we do the drop-down, you'll notice you get options that you can add on to the cruise package, and one of them is Flight of Fun. So let's click on Flight of Fun, and it's going to pull up our Flight of Fun booking engine. So you'll notice it automatically pre-populates the booking number. All you have to do is hit Search Flight. Now, just a very quick note that if the booking is not deposited, you do have to have a deposit on the booking to be able to search for the flights. If you do not have a deposit, when you click Search Flights, it's going to tell you that you have to have a deposit. So let's click Search Flights. And what we're going to see here is a screen that has all of the basic information pre-populated. So at the very top, you're going to see that it says who you're booking for. So it automatically defaults to the guests that are in the room. If you only needed air for one person in the room, or if you were doing flight schedules from different cities, you could always just do one of them and then click the next one later and do a different city. You'll also notice that it is going to put in the cruise departure date and the cruise return date. Now, also from the screen, you're going to have a couple different qualifiers that you can look through. You can sort by the number of stops. So if they wanted a nonstop flight, if they were okay and they're just looking price and they were okay with multiple stops, you could choose up to 2 stops, or you could just leave it set at any. You can also choose the airline. So in this case, I'm going to choose Delta. And then down below, what you'll notice are more qualifiers. So both the departure flight getting to the cruise ship and the return flight getting home from the cruise ship. So on this side, you can choose the different classes of service. You also have boxes that you can put in the airports. You can change the airports if you want. So in this case, they're flying into London Heathrow. But let's say they wanted to go into Paris before. You could have them flying into Paris and then flying home from London, or any combination of cities. It also defaults automatically to the date of cruise departure and the date of cruise return. If you wanted to change those, all you would do is click on the box. It does pull up a calendar box where you can select a different date. This is how you could do a pre or post with the air. But I would always recommend that you at least fly in the day before for a cruise. So especially if we're doing a European cruise. So I'm going to do it for one day before the cruise and then one day after the cruise. Once I've selected my qualifiers, the next screen I'm going to see is going to give me some recommended flights at the top. So it's always going to give you what your lowest price option is and also what your shortest flight option is. Down below are the different flights that meet your criteria. So in this case, we have 32 different flights. You can go through and you can then filter even more. You can look at restricted fare types or flexible fare types. You can again look at how many stops the flight makes. You can look at various departure times. So you can filter a little bit more from this screen as well. And remember those two different types of air. You will see options for both flexible air and restricted air. Now, in this case, I'm booking very close in. Remember, I have all the way up until 4 days prior to the cruise departure. So I'm booking pretty close in. So I do get both options, and they're both comparable. I'm going to go ahead and select the flexible air. So I'll hit the select button. And what you'll see on the next screen is it's going to show me that departure flight that I just selected, and it's going to give me options down below for the return flight. Now, when I initially did this, I had a lot of flights that were stopping, had 2 or 3 stops involved. And I actually did nonstop because they want to get home as quick as possible. Once you select that, you will filter even more, and it'll show you the options that meet you. In this case, there is a little bit more additional. So on some of the flights that had like 2 or 3 stops, there was 0 additional. In this case, it's going to be about 300. It's 307.22 cents more per person, but it's a non-stop direct flight. So I'm going to choose the first option here. And again, I'm looking at flexible air. And what I'll get after that is a flight review screen. So here are the flights that we selected. Here's going to be our departure flight. And if I needed to change that, there is a hyperlink that I could change the flight. I also have the return flight listed, and if I needed to change that, there's another hyperlink. And then down below is going to be our summary. So it's the total amount of the flight, $3,603.80. And as mentioned with flexible air, no money due at time of booking. That's due with final payment. So everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and hit book now. So the next screen that I'm going to get will be the guest information. So it'll have each guest broken down. You'll notice in the middle of the screen, there is a drop down where you can add their frequent flyer information. If there's any special services that are required, like a wheelchair, you could also add that here. And then you also need to enter how they prefer to get their flight notifications. So you can put in either their email or their mobile number or both of them. And then if they don't want any type of notifications, they would have to click the button to opt out. So you do have to do this for all the guests in the room. And at the bottom of the screen, again, you'll see that breakdown that shows what the pricing is, what's due right now. And all you have to do is hit the continue button. You're going to get the terms and conditions for the air transportation. You can look through the terms for the flexible air in this case that tells you what the rules are. We talked about no name changes allowed. We talked about any changes made within 60 days have a $200 fee and any additional applicable fees. Also, it says that we're not responsible for any type of baggage fees because those are airline imposed, and that if they cancel, that air could possibly be a penalty. So in this case, we're outside of penalty, but you do have to read through these, click the I have read and understood and accept above conditions, and then hit accept and book. Congratulations, you have a flight booking now. So this is going to be your flight confirmation, and from here you're going to have your air booking number. You're also going to have a couple different hyperlinks that I would suggest that you read through, or that your clients read through, because they can see this in their online cruise manager. But you'll see a link that has the different baggage fees. You'll see another link that says manage your flights. So manage your flights is if they wanted to go, maybe you didn't add their frequent flyer number, maybe you didn't choose a seat for them and they want to fly together. And then the other link I want you to pay attention to is the print. So if you wanted to print this out, I always think it's a good idea to have this confirmation, because until the air gets ticketed, you won't see it show up. You won't see the schedule show up. So make sure you always print this out. They could also do managed flights from here if they wanted to go ahead and request their seats. If they have their seats, it would show up right here. So I've made the air reservation. I've gone back into GoCCL. I'm under manage booking. And now what you'll see when we look down into the pricing breakdown, you'll see the fare information, and you'll see that $3,603.80 added to transportation add-on. So that's going to be the air that was added. Also on your guest confirmation, there will be a note there about the air and the terms and conditions, but you have successfully added air to a cruise booking. So that's how you would make a reservation through GoCCL. Let's talk through a few of the Fly to Fun frequently asked questions. So first, Does the deposit need to be made on a booking to book air with Fly to Fun? The answer is yes. So you do have to have a deposit before you can book Fly to Fun. Remember, I told you if you try to do it through the online cruise manager, we'll prompt you with a notice that you're not able to book unless there's a deposit. That brings up the other question: can you check flights and pricing on Fly to Fun without having a reservation? No, unfortunately, you do have to have a cruise reservation with a deposit before you can look for flights. So most of the time, I would recommend getting a general idea of what pricing flights are pricing out to be, and then you can always research for the client after the cruise booking is made. What is the latest date you can add air? So we talked about this with both different types of air, so both flexible and restricted air. You can add all the way up until 4 days prior to the sailing, assuming the availability is there. Absolutely. So they have full flexibility. They can customize and arrange their flight dates either before or after a cruise, however long they want to do it. This is when we get a lot. If my client has a child that is under 2 years old traveling in their lap, the way you would do that is you need to first book your adult clients and try to find air booking. Don't book the child. And then you would need to call us 100 Carnival, and it advise us that your client will have an infant. We'll be able to note the reservation. That way the airline knows they're coming. Now, does Carnival offer transportation to and from the airport and port? Yes, we do offer transportations. We do offer transfers both on days of embarkation and debarkation, but transfers must be purchased separately through GoCCL under the managed booking. There is a link there that says, so